Right, today I'm going to have a look at latest acquisition. I've had this a bit, but I've not reviewed this particular rifle. And it is the Bsa Cadet Major. Now, this is I think it's a C prefix. Let me just make sure. Yep, it's a C prefix one. So it's quite an early one. The C prefix ones were made in 1948. So it's quite an early cadet. The majors came out a year or two after the actual cadets, and they were like a slightly bigger brother to it, if you like. A bigger, longer rifle. These were about 42 inches long, whereas the cadets were about 39, so a little bit shorter. The cadet was less powerful and didn't have an adjustable trigger. So these were like their big brother, if you like. So like I say, came out in 1948, same year as the Air Sporter Mark I. And the cadet would have been the proper youth rifle. This would have been the sort of teenage BSA air rifle of the time. And the Air Sporter would obviously have been the adult's rifle. That's not to deride these, because a good one of these was capable of around about 10 foot-pounds, which was pretty good for the size of the rifle. You know, these are only weigh 5.5 pounds, something like that, so it's a fairly light rifle. And like I say, a really good one that was well maintained and in good condition with the right pellets would generate about 10 foot-pounds muzzle energy, though more likely would have been the 8 to 9 foot-pounds range. But nonetheless, these were still capable of taking rabbits out at close, and a particularly good example would be okay for out to sort of 30 yards with a headshot. And you've got to remember that most air rifles then, hunters were using them at those sort of ranges. It was only later that this sort of obsession with 40, 50 yards and all the rest of it became common. It was more reliant on the field craft of the shooter rather than just the absolute power of the rifle. So, cadet, let's have a little look at it. So first off, really nice slimline construction. It's a proper, beautiful, streamlined rifle. The stock actually flows in beautifully. It's a little bit thicker at the bottom and then flows into the cylinder almost. Only a tiny little bit sliver of wood on the top, almost flows in one smooth sweep. The front, the woodwork goes all the way to the front of the cocking link, makes this beautiful curve. And it's a very streamlined, slim rifle all round. Top of the cylinder block all merges in. Beautiful design. Beautiful, beautifully streamlined little rifle. Also, really good quality. These were probably the last of the break barrel BSAs that were made to top quality. No plastic, no cheap die casting, no enameling. Everything's gun steel and blued, and it shows. It's a lovely, lovely bit of workmanship on these guns. The meter that came after it was obviously a cost-saving exercise, and even though the earlier meters were quite nice, they progressively got cheaper and cheaper and nastier and nastier, and as did all, unfortunately, BSA rifles. And if you compare the workmanship in one of these to a later, even a Mercury, there really is no comparison. So everything's steel, even this curved breech block here that they copied in a casting later on, an enamelled casting in the later rifles, this is steel. Trigger adjustment in the back with a little screw that goes through it. Nice steel, wide bladed trigger. Rear sight adjustable for height, but to adjust the windage you have to tap it, like on the earlier rifles, and a pretty typical BSA beaded foresight. Solid steel bar underlever, and it is a solid steel bar as well. It's not pivoted, and it's not a pressing or a stamping or anything, it's a solid steel bar. And the stock on this one is quite an elaborate affair for such a slender and slim sort of rifle. If you look at it carefully, you will notice that it has this bit here curves round, and it's actually made up of 3 parts. Well, it's actually made up of more than 3 parts, but like the early air sporters, the 2 side pieces were laminated onto it. And then if you look here, it's also got a reinforcing strut or laminated piece of wood in the pistol grip as well. So that runs all the way down as well. So it's an exceptionally strongly made and elaborate stock for such a slimline stock. Bsa logo is stamped on the front, and all in all, really nice. Now, it would have been photo etched on the top of the cylinder. Sadly, the photo etching's worn off this one. All of these are 177. I've never seen or heard of a 221. They're all 177 caliber, and it's a proper nice lightweight youth's air rifle, and it just feels lovely in the shot. The balance is absolutely superb, and it's just so well made. They really did make beautiful rifles back in the day. So this is a 1948, and you see how it's just really nice in the shoulder. Very, very elegant rifle. Definitely one of the prettiest break barrels that there was. It's such an elegant thing. The way it sort of swells from the bottom and slopes into the cylinder, it's very organic almost feeling. A beautiful thing. And you can see it shares some similarities with the early Bsa air sporter. So this is a Mark 1 air sporter from about 1948 as well. And again, similar sort of thing, only the thing is with this one, they've actually used a, by now they're using a alloy casting instead of the stainless steel that's on that one. But similar sort of thing in the stock, where it's made up of 3 parts. There's no reinforcing bits in this though, because this has the bolt that runs all the way through the pistol grip. And again, you see, look at that lovely rifle, much heavier. This is probably nearer 8 pounds. Much heavier rifle, but much more powerful. And this is a 2.2. But if you look at the basic sort of design of it, that sort of slimline, slinky rifle, really nicely executed. These guns were properly made for shooting, just come up really well. It was a great shame when they started to go gradually downhill with the design and the construction of the rifles. But I like the little Bsa Cadet Major. Had a few of these, and they're still really shootable. If you renew the spring in them and check the piston washer and make sure the breech seal's fine, these things, you know, modern lubrication, you get 10 foot-pounds out of one of these. Sweet shooting little things, shoot really well. Very accurate little gun, good quality barrel on them. Triggers aren't too bad, they're not brilliant, but they're not too bad. Certainly had much worse triggers on modern springers. So what a beautiful little gun. You know, if you were like, what, 14, 15, in the late 40s, early 50s, and someone bought you that for Christmas, you would be made up, because it is a lovely little rifle, beautifully made. And you think that's what, 74 years old, something like that. Still mint, still shootable. So well constructed, simple to work on. Nothing overly complex. Changing a spring is a relatively straightforward matter. Yeah, really nice guns. Really nice little guns. No facilities for a scope, obviously. It's way before scopes became popular. Same as on the Air Sporter Mark 1, really. There's no facilities for a scope on that either. But really at the sort of ranges that you'd be hunting with these things, you don't need a scope, to be honest. You know, if you're only shooting out to a maximum of 30 yards, scopes are necessary. Lovely BSAs, really like them. And that's the BSA, the Air Sporter Mark 1. See the similarities. Lovely rifles.